During the 90s, I had an investment bank in Washington, Hamilton Securities, and we were developing software tools and financial vehicles that would allow us to do the equivalent of mutual funds for a place. So imagine having a community venture fund or a community REIT where in your 401k and IRA you could buy stock in something that would invest in local real estate or local business in your place. So think of it as like a little mutual fund for a place. And the theory was that if we could re-engineer the federal budget so that federal investment, instead of harming places, could build up the health of a place and the economy in a place, and you could do that in these securitized vehicles, then pension funds could make money on re-engineering the federal budget and healing America and rebuilding the economy as we globalized. So as globalization moved jobs and income abroad, we would have a new thing to move up. And I was working with a wonderful group of pension fund leaders who were on an advisory board for one of the subsidiaries of my company. And I had a meeting with them, and we had done a simulation of re-engineering the economy in the Philadelphia area using these kinds of vehicles and trying to see what would happen if we could re-optimize the economy. And we made the presentation to the board. It was out at one of the big money managers outside of Philadelphia. And so we made a presentation on here's how the pension funds could make a fortune on re-engineering and reinventing America. And that was important because the number one economic issue at that time was we were very concerned that with the baby boomer generation moving through the life cycle, that the pension funds wouldn't be able to earn enough on their assets to have enough money to provide for the baby boomers' retirement. And so this was kind of a win-win. The pension funds invest on re-engineering places. You re-engineer the federal budget. The pension funds make a fortune, and then they can afford to pay for the baby boomers' retirement. So you sort of rebuild America in a way that is successful for providing for the baby boomers' retirement. And I'll never forget it. One of the corporate leaders, the corporate pension fund leaders from Connecticut, and he said, "This is fantastic." He said, "We're going to save America and get really rich." And then the head of the largest pension fund in the country from California, wonderful man, turned to me and he said he had worked for Saul Alinsky, the activist, as a young man, and he said, "You don't understand. This is so much like Saul's plan, and they were able to stop him, the great they." And I said, they didn't have the internet. We have a way of communicating on a much more decentralized, diverse way that will allow for much greater optimization and much greater freedom of economic participation. He was right, I was wrong, but little did I know. And he looked at me and I said, we can so increase the learning metabolism within business networks and within a place that you can kick up that learning metabolism in a way that so increases economic productivity and value that you can make the pie that much bigger. There's enough wealth for everybody. And he looked at me, and it was funny. He started to cry. His eyes were tearing. And he said to me, "You don't understand. It's too late." I said, "What do you mean it's too late?" And he said, "It's too late. They've given up on the country. They're moving all the money out starting in the fall." Now that fall was October 1998, the beginning of federal fiscal 1999, when all the money started to disappear. So $4 trillion of undocumentable adjustments got booked in fiscal 99 through 2002. And it was that fall that the money started to disappear from HUD, DOD. I had thought when he said to me, "You don't understand, they've given up on the country, they're moving all the money out starting in the fall," I thought he meant that the big pension funds were going to shift their asset allocations to do much more in the emerging market, which made total sense. You want to invest in the economies shift money out of the developed world into the emerging markets and the worlds that have a high growth rate. I now realize that that was not the case. He was also talking about huge illegal movements of money. We pumped and dumped the stock market with the telecom, sucked a huge amount of money out, and then, of course, the financial fraud and the bailouts. Now, this brings up a very important question that relates to everyone in America who's got a pension fund. That president of the largest pension fund in the country in April of 1997 knew that we were going to shift the incomes and the jobs abroad. So they knew that the credit rating and the incomes of middle Americans were going to stall or decline. They knew that. Why would they commit to buying trillions of dollars of mortgage-backed securities when they knew that that was not a credit-worthy thing to do? Now, to me, given that they knew we were going to go through this shift, given that they knew that the incomes of most Americans were going to fall, why they would agree to use beneficiaries' money to finance something that they knew would harm the country and couldn't possibly do well for the pension funds. Why would they do that? To me, that's outside the fiduciary principles, if not the laws, of the pension funds. And unfortunately, one of the dreadful things that's now happened is we've shifted an enormous amount of money out of the country and left in place, whether it's in the Social Security Fund or in the pension funds, a lot of paper that we now owe to ourselves. Okay, so we've shifted the real assets out and left an IOU that is basically a giant circular I. So as I'm getting ready to retire, the asset that I have saved is not a real asset. It's simply an IOU that I owe to myself. But literally what we've seen is a financial coup d'etat where tremendous amounts of assets have been moved out of the legacy economy into a new economy. And the legacy economy, whether it's the negotiations in Washington or what's happening in the pension funds, is now in this circular IOU relationship with itself and is being asked for the first time to come to a state of financial responsibility when it's avoided doing so for the last 70 years. But during that 70 years, a lot of the assets have been sucked out.